Okay, hey everybody. This is me here with my mentor, Mr. Adrian. He's going to be with me for the 12 weeks. Mr. Adrian, you teach English, classroom English, yes?
Correct. I teach high school literature and English first language.
Very good. I will be teaching high school ELL, similar level to what Adrian teaches in terms of student age. As far as my classroom rules and expectations and routines, I've got a pretty simple list. Always come to class prepared with your textbook and workbook / journal. We do a lot of journaling and vocabulary work, and we also do a lot of other writing activities in class. Those two things are essential. Be respectful of others at all times. It's not a huge problem at our school. It's pretty well-behaved kids. Raise your hand before speaking. Some classes that's definitely needed. Along with that goes sticking to English only. There's a lot of reversion to Vietnamese in most of my classes. Leave your desk area tidy after each period. That has to do a little bit with shared spaces. Most of my classrooms, unlike Mr. Adrian, I have shared spaces where I'm a guest instructor. Do your work promptly and on your own. That's just always a reminder, no plagiarism, and to hand things in on time. And during small group work, I will choose the partners, as it's devolved into Lord of the Flies chaos whenever I let the children choose their own groups. Mr. Adrian, do you have any particular classroom expectations or routines that you adhere to?
I've got a couple of things to mention about your rules there. I think it's a little nice idea, by the way, but what I do with the group selection, we have similar problems as well. I use a deck of cards. So I often use it to randomly select, and I'll be like, right, diamonds, hearts, clubs, spades, for example, or using there's many ways you can use it.
Okay.
And you do a little flick through, and then that way nobody feels like you're picking on them.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's quite helpful.
Yeah,
and then, I just wanted to ask you about the rules though. So do you let them know what the consequences are going to be if they break those?
Great question. Yeah, at the beginning of this year, after our classroom management unit, I instituted a couple of negative consequences for some of these rules. Doing your work promptly, they'll lose 2 points out of a possible 10 if the work's not handed in each Friday as it should be. If you don't come prepared with your textbook or workbook, generally your name goes on a list. You do that 2 times in a week. You get to sit outside for a while. The other ones, leave your area tidy and raise your hand. Don't have anything there, but I'd love to get something for raise your hand before speaking that wouldn't disrupt the whole lesson. But I constantly have to, I teach some younger kids in addition to the high school. I don't know if you have this problem, but speaking in Vietnamese, no matter what, it just seems they always break into it. Even if I try to implement the harshest punishment or give rewards, like free ICT time, free time, they just gotta speak Vietnamese. So that's an issue. So maybe going forward, we can work on that together.
Yeah. So there's things like peer pressure works well with things like that. So for example, they could be looking forward to something at the end of the week, some kind of game or activity.
Yeah.
But that relies on the number of let's say times they break the rule of not speaking Vietnamese being held down to a minimum. And then if it goes over that number, then they don't get that activity.
Right.
So there'll be quite a few kids in the past that might sort of discourage their colleagues from doing that.
Okay.
Peer pressure works really well with high school kids.
Yeah, nice. That would actually be a great thing for the ICT, the computer lab that I just mentioned. They love it in there.
Right,
and
exactly,
when that gets lost.
Sorry guys, you don't have to point out anybody, but you'd be like, sorry guys, there was 15 times when I had to say last week, you don't speak Vietnamese, and you've got to be under 10. And it doesn't pinpoint anyone precisely, but they'll be like, come on, stop doing that. They encourage each other. My rules, you're asking about my rules. Well, luckily at the moment, I'm teaching the sort of older kids, and I'm also teaching the top level, the most motivated ones.
Nice.
And I've also got very small classes. So I kind of, at the moment, my rules are fairly flexible, and it's more, we begin the year and I talk about respect, and respecting each other, respecting themselves, respecting the teacher, and if things start to slip, like they don't listen to each other, they don't listen to me, they're not trying their hardest, then it's more like a reminder, you know, are you respecting yourself here? Are you respecting each other? Are you listening? You know, and that works enough in my situation. But I have, you know, before I've taught much younger children, much larger classes, and then I've got to be very explicit about my rules in much the same way that you are. And you've got to, you know, outline what the consequences will be if they. That's really, really important.
Yeah.
You know, and also if they can be sort of in line with the school's policies as well.
Sure.
Therefore, you've got backup.
Yep.
Is really helpful.
Yeah, the middle school kids in particular sometimes like to act out.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's some good advice. So for learning standards, Adrian and I spoke earlier, and Standard 1 learner development from the core standards. I'm going to take some other standards and work on them as well, because I've been teaching here. We're already in our second term this year, so this is not a new classroom for me at this time. But I will keep in mind Standard 1, learn development, candidate understands how students grow and develop, recognizing patterns of learning. Obviously that's going to be key moving forward, but the two standards I'm going to be working on for this coming unit are ELA literacy, speaking and listening, and ELA literacy writing. And you'll see this in my summary overview, but the first standard is present information, findings, and supporting evidence clearly, concisely, and logically, such that listeners can follow the line of reasoning and organization, development, substance, style, appropriate to purpose, audience, and task. So this is a speaking standard, and that's going to answer the objective on the bottom here, practice exam style, long speaking turns. And the second standard we're addressing is use technology, including the internet, to produce, publish, and update individual or shared writing products, taking advantage of technology's capacity to link other information and to display information flexibly and dynamically. That in particular is going to pertain to conduct research using the internet is one of my objectives, and practice reading and note-taking, part and parcel of doing research, obviously. And we're actually in Unit 9 right now, which is entitled Absolutely Sensational, Crime and the Media. So I've taught this class last year, and I know what this chapter involves. So that's where I'm going to be getting into literally tomorrow, so the timing is kind of working out to be realistic. But do you have any comments, Adrian, on the objectives or the standards?
I don't think so, other than I guess that, you know, to me this looks like very much presentation sort of focus. I'm imagining the kids doing presentations here. Probably.
Yeah, there are a couple, as you know, here at our school, there are assessment events that are required, and a couple of those are coming up. Oral presentation or group presentation, even a role play we did last year with criminals, crime capers. Yeah. So, and internet research was a big part of that as well. And speaking, obviously, to get some of these second language students to really speak so that they're heard. Even some of the stronger students really have really meek speaking voices. And
sometimes confidence is a thing.
Yeah, I do my best to get them out of their shell. So yeah.
Which age is it?
It's IG2.
The IG2 is right.
Yeah,
so it's the EPP class.
Yeah, and it's English and Cindy and Stephen and
oh right, yeah, you've got some.
Andrew. Yeah. So actually, good kids and
it
should go well. But I'll be breaking these objectives down into individual lesson plans, and we'll be proceeding according to a few of my objectives here. Just to read out the other objectives on camera. At the end of this unit, students will be able to practice exam-style long speaking turns, practice reading and note-taking, conduct research using the internet, use vocabulary related to crime and the media, listen for and distinguish between main and supporting ideas, and recognize the difference between fact and opinion. So, in conclusion here, Adrian's going to be my mentor. He actually is, as he said, a literature instructor. I was a literature major in university, so we're kind of on the same page there. And in fact, I implement a lot of social studies or literature / kind of crossover education when I do my ELL, so it's not all just grammar. But anyway, appreciate the time. And Mr. Adrian, anything to add?
On your presentations, some of the names that you mentioned there, I teach them in the first language English class as well. And we do presentations quite regularly there too. And I also have a rubric which you might want to take a look at, because then you can see what they practice every week.
Gotcha.
And you might even fancy doing a buddy system or something with some of the lower level students in that class, because obviously the students that in first language English, they've got a lot of experience with it, and they might be able to help the others.
Ah, that's very good. That actually brings up a great point, guys. The Teach Now clinical rubric, which I've given to Mr. Adrian. So this is actually fairly similar to what we use here at the school. There are 4 to 5 different scoring categories, and there's usually 4 to 5 different breakdown categories that they use. So this will be something that Mr. Adrian will be using to kind of assess how I'm doing, and we hope that everything goes smoothly in the future. And yeah, I appreciate the time he's taking, and thanks. See you guys later.